of all the things I read this week, one of the most beautiful is right in the Come Follow Me manual. As they introduce this section, I won't give you the full quote, but you should open up your Come Follow Me manual and read it. Because it says this: there are many different ways to try to measure a person's worth. Talent, education, wealth, and physical appearance can all affect how we evaluate each other and ourselves. But in God's eyes, our worth is a much simpler matter, and it is stated clearly in Doctrine and Covenants 18. Remember, the worth of souls is great in the sight of God. This simple truth explains so much of what God does and why he does it. I wanted to create an object lesson that would help your kids understand their worth, that God measures worth differently than we do in this mortal world. And as I was reading some of the ideas in the Come Follow Me manual and in the seminary manual, oftentimes they alluded to this idea of we can know our worth because of the infinite sacrifice. Because Christ's sacrifice is so big and infinite in nature, then we can know that we are also something that is treasured infinitely, that our worth to God is infinite because the sacrifice was infinite. Essentially the idea of, if I pay this much for something, then this must be worth it. That's the way I wanted to illustrate this, is by having an auction. So I thought it would be kind of cool if when your kids come into family scripture study or your Come Follow Me time at home, or just in a classroom setting, you have an auction of random objects. For me, in my YSA class, we have this tradition in the summertime. I call it the Rosh, which means random objects from Sister Eckersley's house, where I just gather weird things, you guys. Like sometimes it was a half-used bottle of Chick-fil-A sauce. Sometimes it was like a random dollar store toy I had. Random objects from around my house. And then as they answered questions, they could earn those random objects. And you wouldn't believe how hard they tried to get these random things. And that's kind of the idea here, is you're not going to go out and buy stuff or get cool prizes. You're just going to get random stuff from around your house and have an auction. Let your kids feel what it's like. To do that, you're going to want the printable. So in the printable, I give you first a cash stash. So these tiny little dollar bills that are in 5s, 10s, 20s, 50s, 100s. You can decide how many dollars to give to each kid. If you don't want to have to cut these, you also could just grab, from the dollar store or from your Monopoly game, grab some cash out and distribute some cash to everybody in your class. Then you're going to give each person an auction paddle. Because what good is an auction if you don't have something to raise, right? So as they see things like a water bottle for sale, they can throw up their bidding paddle and make a bid on the item. Then you're also going to need the gavel. The gavel has the scripture on it. It also is just something you can pound to say when the item is sold. When I handed this to Violet, she was very enthusiastic in her gaveling. So trust me, if you have a primary class or even a young women's class to teach, this would be a good option to bring. Maybe you let the kids be the auctioneer for a certain item, or you be the auctioneer and kind of watch the prices go up. But then take some time after the auction, and they all have their little prizes and they've got their things, to talk about how some things that cost you a lot of money to purchase actually don't show much value in their purchase. Something that may have cost you $500 to buy is worth nothing but paper money to them. Because that's not how we evaluate worth. It's not based on what I paid for it. It's based on what others will pay now. That's how we evaluate worth in this world. But what we learn in this week's Come Follow Me is that our worth is so much deeper to God. We have evidence of our worth because of this infinite sacrifice of his son. Because he was willing to pay so much for us, this infinite amount, we can trust that he loves us that much, that we are worth that cost to him. That's what the scriptures teach you over and over again in section 18, that your worth in the sight of God is great, and that you can take comfort in knowing that he will pay the full price. He will be all in order to save not just all the souls of men, but just specifically yours. There's some beautiful prophetic commentary about that if you go in the notes so that you can reinforce this to your kids. Personally, I love Elder Hurst's talk from this last conference. If you need one to talk to your teenagers about, that's a great one to talk about, the worth of souls. There's some other great quotes from Elder Uchtdorf and a few others that help you understand what your worth really is to God, and how the atonement of Jesus Christ is evidence of that worth. But hopefully the auction will help that sink in just a little bit deeper.